Let me first off by introducing myself. My name is Jake. I'm the manager of Puyallup Fitness Quest. We are a small family-owned fitness center in the northwest of Washington. We have 3 locations, one in Auburn, one in Puyallup, and one in University Place. And today we have the great honor of having Stephen and Natalie on to join us. And with the two of them, we've teamed up to create some of the best supplements that I've ever seen. I've been in the fitness industry basically my whole life. My dad grew up, and since the age of 3 or 4, I was right next to him on the exercise floor and always wrestling, and weight management, supplementation being a big part of my life. And so having these two is just a great wealth of knowledge that I'm super excited to learn more with and get to know them a little bit better and share their knowledge with everybody. And so kind of with being in the fitness industry, I've noticed a lot of different views on diet, health, exercise, metabolism, and weight management. It's kind of all over the place. With the internet, it seems like the more you dive down the rabbit hole, the more confused you get with just different opinions and information and just a lot of things being thrown at you. Now with TikTok, you get 30 things thrown at you, all different opinions. And it's just making it harder to kind of come up with a good game plan and help my members as much as possible. Maybe you two can kind of relate to all that as well. But yeah, so with this blog, what we're intended to do is kind of address the controversies and conflicting information that makes the internet, right? And then the locker room of swap of confusion. We got one member saying one thing, another saying another. So here at Fitness Quest, we try and be all on the same page. And whenever we don't have the knowledge or information, we have 2 great assets to kind of bounce around that information. With Natalie, she was a double board certified family medicine doctor. She is a pioneer in what is known as the integrative medicine, the utilization of natural products to achieve optimal health and the use of prescribed drugs when needed. Dr. Cather has been in the trenches serving as a principal investigator for human clinical trials in both the pharma and natural products arena. Her husband is Stephen Cherniske, a biochemist specializing in human nutrition. Stephen taught clinical nutrition at 2 Southern California universities and directed the nation's first FDA-licensed clinical lab specializing in nutrition and immunology. He served on the faculty of the American College of Sports Medicine and was selected as a consultant to the U.S. Olympic track and field team. Like his doctor wife, he walks his talk, helping to train world record holders in mountaineering, martial arts, triathlons, and freestyle wrestling. Oh, and by the way, he's a best-selling author with more than 1 million copies in print sold, The Metabolic Makeover. So without further ado, I would love to introduce Stephen and Natalie. What should be our topic today?
Well, I just want to edify you more, Jake, because it's amazing how you got to this executive position at Fitness Quest. You were the 1-time All-American, 3-time
three-time Pac-12 champion, and then of course Pac-12 Wrestler of the Year. I could go on. The wonderful thing about you, Jake, is that you didn't stop there. You didn't hang up your out wrestling togs and then call it a day. You went on to teach others how to excel. And so again, Division II national champion coach. So we're delighted and proud to be part of your team.
Thank you.
All right, so
the topic today, where should we begin?
I was kind of thinking of it's kind of a big controversy right now, and a lot of excitement around it. Not a whole lot of information around it, but the new weight loss drug, Ozempic. I know a lot of celebrities are on it. There's a new study that came out with a lot of claims about 100% efficacy. And it's kind of skyrocketing and changing the weight loss industry right now. And it's kind of a black market that just kind of sprung up. So if we can kind of start with that, what are your guys' thoughts and kind of go from there?
Yeah, to think about that, it's in such demand that the pharmaceutical companies can't keep up. And so there's this black market, but who wants to buy injectable medication from a black market?
Right. So I think we can agree, Eli Lilly and Novo Nordisk are the 2 manufacturers that are producing these drugs. And so you got Ozempic, you got Wegovy, and Mounjaro. Those are the 3 that are available now. There's a tablet coming out by Eli Lilly in about 90 days. So everyone's waiting for that. The point is that even without the oral tablet, the use of these drugs is skyrocketing. And so what we want to talk about today is, number one, how does it work? How do these work? Because people are losing weight fast. And like you said, Jake, when you go on TikTok or you go on Instagram and you see the results that people are posting, it's dramatic. The question is, number one, how does it work? And is it safe? So,
right. And there are no long-term safety studies on these medications. These were used for people with diabetes, type 2 diabetes. And the three medications that we've mentioned, they're in a classification of what are called GLP-1 receptor agonists. And the Mounjaro is actually a combination of that kind of agonist activity, as well as a polypeptide, a glucose-dependent insulinotropic polypeptide. And so these medications...
Translation: it makes insulin work better to escort glucose into the cells, so it controls your blood sugar.
And it helps the pancreas do a better job at making insulin,
which is great.
Yeah, and a better job at after eating, putting out another hormone, glucagon. And so these drugs mimic hormones made by the intestines. A lot of people don't think about how their intestines are part of their endocrine system and hormonal. So when you're eating, just think about how you're feeling hormonal.
So it's going to help you in terms of your blood sugar level by helping your pancreas work better, and your insulin sensitivity will increase, which is good. The second way that they work is by holding the food that you eat, holding it much, much longer in your stomach. So that has a pretty dramatic effect of curbing your appetite. I mean, normally your stomach will empty in about 45 minutes. With these drugs, your stomach will hold on to that food for 3 or more hours. So you have no desire to eat. In fact, you have a very uncomfortable feeling if you eat even a little bit too much. So you've got to learn to eat slowly. You've got to learn to eat smaller amounts more frequently during the day. And if you don't do that, you're going to feel pretty uncomfortable.
These medications also act directly on centers in the brain that help decrease appetite. So no wonder they're so successful in helping with weight loss. Yeah. But we're really concerned about the kind of weight loss it is, because it's not just fat. People are losing muscle.
And Jake, this is something that, right down your alley, Jake. You help people. Just in the time that we've known you, you've helped, I don't know, thousands of people lose weight. And to your credit and to the credit of your organization, you do it by helping people to build muscle. And I wonder if you'd like to comment on the fact that in the clinical trials with these drugs, people are losing a lot of muscle.
Yeah. So when it comes to personal training and just the fitness industry in itself, the number one goal of a trainer is adherence, right? The secret to success is just following a good program. And so it seems with this, you're kind of solidifying that adherence by making it so uncomfortable to eat. You just don't eat.
Right.
And our thing is we actually, we try and encourage more people to actually enjoy food and eat the right types of food, and look at it more of a nutritional standpoint versus, a pleasure standpoint, to where you need a certain amount of grams of protein to ensure that you're building muscle mass during the process, and then getting enough food to where, you're getting enough calories in to give your body the energy it needs to, keep going and moving more. And then we also heard a study out there that the less you eat, the less you move. And so your body naturally, your subconscious naturally reacts when you cut calories. You move less throughout the day. And so if you have less energy because you're eating less, then you're just moving less. And so our goal is to give you more energy. Think about working out as a way of recharging your battery, increasing your muscle mass, increasing your muscle endurance, increasing your cardiovascular and VO2 max. So when you're out in the real world, you're moving more, you're feeling better, you're more encouraged to go on those hikes, you're more encouraged to get up and move around more. And so that's kind of where we're at with this. And so with the weight loss drug, my only concern is what are the, we kind of went over the mechanisms and we haven't really discussed the effects of it, but what's like the direct effect on the muscle mass of the drug? Is it just one of those, the less you eat, the less you move, or what's kind of going on with how they're dropping in muscle mass?
Well, I think let me start by saying rapid weight loss, and it's infuriating for Natalie and I to see medical journals after medical journal after medical journal reporting on these drugs, and they constantly refer to weight loss. Mm. When you and I understand and certainly have been teaching, since the beginning that Natalie and I started, we've been teaching people that you don't want just weight loss. You want to lose fat. And that's what they're not talking about. So in a clinical trial, which took place and it was published just a couple of weeks ago, the average muscle loss was 7%. These people lost an average of 7% of their muscle mass. And that is, I'm going to say it, catastrophic for someone that wants to live a normal life. because when you lose muscle, you lose the ability to regulate your weight. You lose that cushioning factor that muscle has to protect your joints, and you lose your metabolic advantage. I mean, 70% of all your energy comes from your muscles. So imagine losing 7% of your muscle.
And we need our healthy muscle tissue for better immunity, for building energy.
Balancing your blood sugar. We've got a phrase that we've used, in groups with you, Jake. Muscle is magic. Muscle is magic. I mean, it is. Once you lose muscle, you just dug yourself into a metabolic hole. So that, listen to this. This is important. If you lose a lot of muscle on these drugs, and you can't ever go off these drugs, because you've lost the only way your body has to maintain your ideal weight is by burning calories by the muscles. When you lose muscle, you are going to be entirely dependent on these drugs. We had a colleague we ran into in the hospital just a couple of days ago, who Natalie, I didn't even recognize him. Natalie did. And she says, wow, you've lost a lot of weight. He goes, yeah, I lost 80 pounds. How'd you do that? Monjaro. Wow. Amazing. And the more we asked him, the more we realized this man is never, ever going to be able to go off that drug, because during the course of the weight loss experience, and he lost 80 pounds in less than 90 days.
Wow. Okay.
But he lost so much muscle that he admitted, I will never be able to go off these drugs. Otherwise, he said, I'll gain back more weight than I lost.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, now, when you're training, I think we should acknowledge something, that your strategy, Jake, at Fitness Quest is to help people to balance their caloric intake, not necessarily by dramatically reducing calories, but by balancing their caloric intake to match their exercise level, their activity level. And I think we all have to admit that is a slower process compared to Mounjaro, Wegovy, and Ozempic. It's a slower process, but it's a healthy process. It's a sensible process, and because muscle is critical for not only maintaining your energy level. Muscle balances your blood sugar. It protects your joints.
And what's your favorite protein, Stephen, for helping optimize muscle health?
Oh, DHA, of course. Because it's one of the things that's built into the Fitness Quest program is helping people to actually get results when they lift that weight. And of course, people over 35 have usually very low levels of DHEA. So we want to make sure that they have the DHA, which is required to build and maintain the muscle.
Yeah, and here at Fitness Quest, that is probably one of the biggest things we try and educate. And then with your supplements, we actually use those as more as optimizers. And so it's one of those things when it comes to supplements, it's just a really easy thing to kind of understand. It's like, these are supplements helping me fulfill my nutrient that I need, and helping me optimize feeling better, optimize my workouts, and optimize my recovery. To where I think with prescription drugs, it should be almost the same thing, where I'm taking this to optimize my process and whatever I need to do to optimize my health, where a lot of people use that as almost a crutch. And my mind goes straight to, or if I use a crutch for the next 6 months and I only use my right leg and don't use my left leg at all, like what are the side effects of that? I may be able to move more efficiently, but my left leg is going to be inoperable, right? And the fact of going back to my normal day life after that, it's going to be a process of almost starting over and rebuilding my system, right? And that's kind of where my brain goes with the prescription drug. And I think that's the way it's marketed. And you guys think there's a safe, healthy way of encouraging people to focus on building muscle mass while on these drugs? Or is it kind of one of those things, it's one or the other, or you're always going to be in a position where you're going to lose muscle mass, or can you do both?
Great question, because there's a lot of people watching this video right now who are either on one of these drugs or they're thinking about it. And the answer is yes, you can work on both at the same time. You can use these drugs, but you better be going to the gym, and the gym we want people to go to is Fitness Quest. Why? Because your people, your trainers, you and your team, Jake, have been trained to help people in this very specific challenge, which is, how do I lose weight but not lose muscle?
Right. Burn the fat, gain the muscle. And so we appreciate that you have systems like the InBody, where people can really find out how much is fat, how much is muscle. And as they see things change in their weight, to make sure that they're gaining muscle while losing fat. Yeah.
So imagine the best of both worlds. Like that's what you should do. We should call this how to experience the best of both worlds. So again, we're not saying never use these drugs. But we are saying, if you do take that route, you better be moving to
be mindful about muscle.
Be mindful of muscle mass. Now, I want you to talk about one other adverse side effect, which is as serious or more serious than the loss of muscle.
Okay, so we talked about the loss of muscle, and then the effect that it has on the stomach. A condition which is called gastroparesis. So one of the ways of helping this person to reduce their weight is it lowers their desire to eat, because their stomach is full for longer than a healthy person has. So it slows things down. So unfortunately, with these medications, it's not uncommon to have nausea and vomiting and even diarrhea. Wow. And then the drugs even act on centers in the brain that just say, I'm not hungry. They shut down appetite. So imagine being on a drug that you know that you probably can never stop, or you will gain back more than the weight that you had. Maybe worsening of diabetes, maybe new onset of diabetes, but all that in the face of such uncomfortable gut situation, just feeling bloated all the time, which may or may not resolve with adjusting the medication.
Yeah. In the clinical trials that we've been reading, the percentage of people who experience these serious adverse effects, such as constant nausea, frequent vomiting, and ultimately leading to what Natalie mentioned, is that the stomach becomes paralyzed. Now, that's a serious side effect. Well, guess who is experiencing these side effects more? The people that are on the drug the longest.
Gotcha. Okay.
So imagine the dilemma. I mean, if you're looking at this and evaluating your choices, imagine the dilemma of getting on a drug, losing so much muscle that you will depend on that drug for the rest of your life. But number two, seeing that there are no long-term studies for safety. And three, the people who are experiencing the most adverse side effects are the people that have been on the drugs the longest. So this is a huge issue, and no one is talking about it. The people watching this video are getting brand new information that doctors should be shouting from the rooftops, and they're not.
We've gone to lectures regarding these medications, and it's so heartbreaking to hear a cardiologist say, well, they're just going to lose muscle. You just got to accept that.
Wow. And my question is, why is it getting worse the longer you're on the drug? Usually it's like you take the drug and you go through the pains and all that, and your body normally gets used to it. Why is it happening after a longer time of being on the drug? Do we know why?
I would imagine, I mean, this is an educated guess. I would imagine that because the normal rhythm of the stomach emptying its contents into the small intestine, the normal rhythm of the small intestine moving through and then emptying into the large intestine, the normal rhythm of the material going from the colon into the transverse colon and the descending colon and then producing a stool and elimination. All of those rhythms have to be coordinated. And when you're continually blocking that rhythm, at least in the stomach, right? When you're blocking that rhythm, it may be that just with long-term use, things just get worn out, which is why it's referred to as a paralysis of the stomach.
When new drugs come out, I often tell my clients, we'll know more in 5 years.
Yeah, makes sense. And I'm always asking why, but with symptoms and side effects, like what's actually happening? Because if my head, it goes, if something's in my stomach and I feel like my body is in paralysis and it's just sitting there for, instead of 30 minutes, 3 hours, well, is my body, trying to create nausea to have me throw up that stuff in my stomach, or what's actually happening? What are those symptoms deriving from?
Well, there's a reason why frequent vomiting is a common side effect. Because if the food is not going down, the stomach is going to say, "Hey, I don't like this feeling. This material should not be here."
And when we talk about slowing down the stomach, it also involves things called sphincters, and so those sphincters are relaxed, and so it's easier for stuff to come up because it's just been sitting there instead of going down. Imagine an open bowl as opposed to a closed bag. And so the body is having to deal with that too.
Yeah.
And then what happens when you so this is our dilemma, drinking alcohol, it's not the best for you, especially for weight management. It's high inflammatory. What happens if you put like alcohol in your stomach while you're on this drug? Is it just going to double the negative effect, sit there longer?
Well, the alcohol irritates the inside of the stomach. So imagine here's this food that's sitting there and not moving, and then you're adding alcohol to that. So it's even more irritating. And the alcohol also relaxes the sphincter at the top of the stomach. And so that the person's more likely to have reflux and nausea and vomiting. So that's a great question and a good reason not to add alcohol.
Yeah. And so I've kind of looked into this drug a little bit, and it's saying that it's almost like the same thing. Ozempic and Wegovy is almost the same thing, but one is for weight loss and one is specifically for diabetes. Is there a big difference, or is it the same thing?
It's an amount. At first the Ozempic, which is lower dose, and then they increase the dose and call it Wegovy. So it's the same generic semaglutide. Hopefully I said that the right way. But it's just the amount that it's given to the person.
Gotcha. Okay. So which one would be the better route, or are we still not sure?
What are we trying to address? Are we trying to address type 2 diabetes that has been unmanageable or difficult to help with the person getting to a better place? Maybe they have risks already for cardiovascular disease, kidney disease, where these would be appropriate for that individual. Or
so that would be Ozempic.
Gotcha.
Right. Or are we dealing with a person with obesity issues who has a BMI over 30 and they've given a history that's convinced the medical provider that they've tried everything that they could, and this is a last course or last resort. Thank you. And our friend that we spoke of, this drug is $1,100 a month, and he met the criteria such that his insurance covers it.
Oh, okay.
And so insurance companies each have their own requirements for coverage, and that coverage may not be 100%, but still they'll want to, make sure that the person has done certain behavioral work, of course, dietary work. I wish they asked more about fitness work, and what other medications have been tried before going to these GLP-1 agonists.
Gotcha. Okay. And then have we seen any studies of people going off the drug? What happens when they go off the drug? Because you said it's kind of one of those things, once you're on it, you're kind of stuck on it. But what happens when they get off the drug?
I have not seen a good withdrawal study.
Okay.
And I think on the next podcast, I'll take responsibility for bringing that forward because that is a really important question, Jake. What happens when you get off the drug?
And my guess would be that your blood sugar gets back to irregular and then your weight comes back on, if I had to guess.
I would certainly expect that to be the case.
Yeah.
Again,
Okay.
especially because of the frequent muscle loss. Jake, in your experience, and all of the trainers at Fitness Quest are all trained to help people understand how critically important muscle is. When I taught, clinical nutrition, I was constantly reminding, most of my students were on their way to becoming doctors. They were in medical school. They had to take my course, and I tried to inspire them because I knew that they were going on to become doctors. And I tried to inspire them to understand the critical importance of fitness. And you would think that I was speaking like Serbian. they just sat there because it's not in their training. Fitness training does not enter the medical education, but boy, is it critically important. And that's why Fitness Quest is such an important institution, because you guys are out there telling the story the way it is, which is muscle is the key to weight management. Muscle is the key to reducing your risk for a heart attack, to reducing your risk for diabetes, to enjoying a long, happy, healthy life. It's all about muscle. I mean, Jack LaLanne was famous for that. And gave us this great example of the kind of life that you can live when you maintain muscle. Now, on his 90th birthday, I called him up to say happy birthday. And this is a little aside. And I asked him whether he had read my book, and he said, "No, I didn't read your book." I said, "Well, are you taking DHEA?" And he goes, "No, I don't take DHEA."
Oh, wow.
And I said, "Well," and then there was this long pause, and then he says, "So I did 90 push-ups today. How many did you do?" I said, "Less than that."
That's amazing.
So we're going to have people watching our podcast and thinking about, I need to be really smart about my muscle health. Right now we have products at Fitness Quest, supplements that are aimed to help with that process of optimizing muscle health. And so the first one is Synergized DHEA for women, which I like to call Can Do in a capsule. Sure. This protein DHEA not only is important for muscle health and building muscle and seeing good tone after exercising, but it also helps reduce belly fat. It helps with mental clarity. And as the Navy SEALs know, DHEA, it is the hormone of resilience, thus the can do, because it helps us manage stress.
Yeah. And then, of course, time-release protein, because muscle requires additional protein. What kind of protein? We've solved that dilemma because we have learned from the American College of Sports Medicine, demonstrating that the ideal protein is one that releases amino acids slowly over a period of 4 or 5 hours. So we have timed release protein, which initiates the rebuilding and repairing the muscle. With a rapid metabolized protein called whey protein isolate, then that's combined with a slower protein, which is soy protein isolate, combined with an even slower protein derived from a seed, and that's called sacha inchi. And then the fourth part of that time release factor is purified fiber. So all of that helps you to slowly deliver amino acids over a period of 4 or 5 hours, which is the best way to build muscle. And for those people who want to lose weight, it's also the best way to use it for intermittent fasting, because the dilemma for intermittent fasting is that you're ravenously hungry. And so if you can feel not hungry for 5 hours after a protein shake with time-release protein, that makes intermittent fasting a whole lot easier and a great way to lose weight naturally.
And muscles love branched chain amino acids. These are leucine, isoleucine, and valine. And thanks to the whey protein isolate and the sacha inchi and the timed-release protein, each serving delivers over 6 grams of branched chain amino acids. Happy muscles.
Happy muscles.
Love it.
And then
if someone wanted to find these more information on these supplements, is there a specific link they can link to?
I would go to fitnessquest.com.
Oh, that's us. And then what about your book? Can you hold your book up one more time if someone wanted more information on the DHEA?
And then the book we wrote together, which has all the updated materials on DHEA. It's called It's All About Energy.
And even more updated than that, on the fitnessquest.com website is the case for DHEA, an ebook that Stephen wrote.
For free. Download it for free. Yes.
Wow.
Awesome. Because I think I'm the same way. I like to know all the information to make the best educated guess when it comes to programs, when it comes to optimizing health. And I think that's, where the confusion is with this new drug is I just don't think there's enough information readily available. And you guys have kind of opened my eyes to there's a lot that we don't know and a lot that isn't being said. I just want to thank you guys for sharing all your knowledge. I've definitely learned a lot, and I have a lot more avenues where I can go to learn more too. I look forward to continue these conversations with the two of you.
Great.
Thanks, Jake.
Thanks, Jake.
Till next time.
All right.